Good day, everyone. So, I hope you're all doing really well. Before we begin, I just want to thank all of you for your support messages here on the community post that I made. Yes, the surgery went well, and things are looking really bright on my end, except for the fact that I can't, well, play games for too long because I obviously need to rest my eyes. But regardless, all things are looking good. So let's get into today's video, and that is Genshin Impact and Wuthering Waves. So before we talk about Genshin's 4.7 livestream, let's talk about the launch of Wuthering Waves. Personally, I think it went as well as it could. A lot of people are quite unsatisfied at the fact that the game had a bunch of glitches, that it wasn't as smooth as they'd hoped, and some people even went and said, "Oh, I apologize, Genshin Impact, for bad mouthing you." I mean, seriously, come on. I think a lot of people forget that Genshin Impact predecessor is Honkai Impact the Third, and that game had its major part 2 launched earlier this year, and it was a massive failure. Yes, you heard correctly. Honkai Impact the Third was so bad that developers had to issue, again, compensation, the equivalent of 10 wishes, and make an apology to the players. It's almost like all the beta and alpha testers that they had were ignored. It's like the competent testers that were supposed to tell them, hey, these are some major issues that you have, were just not listened to. Whatever happens behind the scenes, I can just honestly say, please understand that even Hoyo themselves mess up. So let's look at Wuthering Waves appropriately. Let's understand that Wuthering Waves is still like in its early phases. There are going to be bumps and hiccups. Not even Genshin Impact 1.0 was perfect. It had a ton of bugs. I can name you a bunch of bugs of Genshin. For instance, when the fishing system came out, you could fish at the top of wind trace, which was a very, very funny bug. Genshin Impact over the years refined all the bugs, and Wuthering Waves will do the same. The real reason I think people are trying to bash on Kuro Games is because they expect the exact same quality and polish of a Genshin 4.7 in a Kuro or a Wuthering Waves 1.0, which is just not fair. What I think is much better to do is to say, hey, Wuthering Waves, you've gotten support, you've gotten a bit of market share. I want to see you improving. At your anniversary or in a year's time, if you've improved and exceeded my expectations, then I'll be happy. And if not, yes, then I think the criticism is deserved. So let's set an appropriate standard. Let's compare apples to apples, and also remember that Genshin itself was not this darling, wonderful star child that just made everyone happy. It was just another pretty cheap open world game, but it really came into its own once it got the funding, and I think the same will happen to Wuthering Waves as well. So let's talk a bit about now, like with Genshin Impact 4.7. So I just saw the live stream before taking a break of my eyes, and I've got a couple of thoughts. I think the resin increase should have happened light years ago. With every region, they should have increased it by 40 and given us more spaces for condensed resin. I don't know why the devs were so lazy about it. I think they finally realized that if they introduce more endgame modes, then people will have more reason to play with different characters. And obviously, if they can market more characters for you to play and keep you hooked in the game, then obviously they'll need to compensate by giving you more primo gems so that you can actually get the characters, which is the Honkai Impact or the Honkai Star Rail strategy. And they also need to increase the resin so you can actually level up these characters and enjoy them. I think it's really taken quite a long while for Genshin to come around. So whilst I'm happy with all of the changes, I really think it's way too late. It's 2 years too late. So I'm not going to be as kind as I am to Wuthering Waves with Genshin. In terms of the characters, Chlorint's looking really awesome. She looks like a character that can really have a lot of depth in terms of who your healer is and how you want to accelerate or slow down her playstyle. Citrin just looks like a generic support for Farina and for Clarint, so we'll still see if we can make a bit more out of her kit and how she compares to Kokomi, because that's going to be the direct comparison, the two like Hydro healers. And the rest of it's looking not too bad. I can definitely see Genshin is now finally starting to realize that the combat focus is a big thing. If your entire open world is all about leveling up your characters, giving them materials, leveling up their weapons and talents for combat, then you better actually freaking give us combat content, not all of these Mario Party minigames. I think this is the first time I'm actually happy and excited for Genshin because this is what I want. I want to be able to use my characters. So with the new endgame, I think it's a bit of an overreach on Hoya's part to give you a seasonal buff for all of your characters that are able to be used in the current version of that Imaginarium Theatre, whatever they call the new endgame mode, and then have those buffs persist outside of that endgame mode. I think this is just another cheap way for them to make characters that they're going to release better on release so that they can sell them more. So I'm definitely seeing through the cheap marketing gimmick there. But at the very least, I can say I'm very happy that at least they are starting to think in the right direction. So they've got an event coming out which has different stage effects and clearing conditions, which is a very nice way of forcing you to build a variety of characters and also not just to stand and use Bennett's Impact or Circle Impact, because if you don't have, for instance, Electro Charge on the characters, well, your Bennett and your Xiangling kind of are useless. So that's the good thing. You can definitely encourage people to use a smaller subset, but by having different stage conditions, you can also encourage gameplay diversity and having each one of the characters having their appropriate spotlights. I think this is a very necessary area that Genshin needed to improve on for quite a while. Basically, with all the characters, how do you give them character stories? How do you flesh out their lore? Well, in my opinion, that's kind of impossible to give every character a character story or to like service all characters. So one of the things you could do is give them more combat variety or put in stage effects that will very uniquely like buff them and like encourage people to play with them, but also to take the dry patches, which is something Genshin still hasn't done, like let's say 4.6, 4.4, 4.5, and have a massive group of characters. Let's say all of the cast in Inazuma have a big event where they all interact and talk, and you build a collective lore. So it's not just one character's lore, but you build up everyone's lore together by explaining like interrelationships and having characters like bounce off each other and argue. That would be far more fun, in my personal opinion, something we still haven't seen. Regardless, so when it comes to the future, obviously Genshin Impact teased a bit of the Genshin anime. Finally, it's been 2 years. We've had an expectation. They tried to use that initial anime release or whatever marketing hype just for hype instead of actually having any follow-up on that. And I fear that's exactly what's also happening here. We still don't have any dates or any release dates, well, currently as of me making this video. So I still just see this as a cheap way to hype up the game rather than giving back to the players and saying, hey, here is an anime for all of your hard work and thank you for supporting us. So me, once again, just being skeptical about Genshin. The last thing to talk about is Natlan, and yes, didn't really look impressive, so let's wait until 4.8 to get a bit more details. It just really looked a bit goofy, in my opinion. A bit out of style for Genshin, but that's my opinion. Regardless, thank you so much for watching. That's what I've got to say on Wuthering Waves and Genshin, and let me know what you guys are excited for. I'm excited for new Endgame and for Chlorinde. It's gonna be really good, so look forward to that on the channel. Cheers.